a new year, right? It's 2024. And if you were out last night, I hope you had a good time. I guess it depends when you're listening to this. But either way, I hope you're going to enjoy what 2024 has to offer, you know. I hope it's a good one for you, everyone listening. Um, all the 200 something people who have listened to the previous episodes, you know, stick around. Thank you. I am grateful for you, and I'm grateful for the people around me. You know, it's been a wild year, but it's been good. You know, it's been okay. Um, Lost some good ones, but we made some nice memories, and that's good. I guess that's something to be grateful for. I've had an okay week, you know, even though I was actually chatting with one of my friends over lunch earlier that I don't like the buzz around the holiday season. You know, I don't like the fact that it's so in your face, you know, in regards to how well other people are doing. The It's not to say that, you know, if you're doing well, well done to you. You know that nothing should stop you to celebrate that. It's just I don't know. I just like it, or like I always consider you know, the person, I guess the one who's not having a great time. You know, who's looking out for them. Um, Not saying it's my job to look out for anyone. I barely look out for myself, to be fair. But yeah, all I'm saying is, you know, it's a time of the year where loads of people are just grateful for everything they have, and some people are just sad for everything they don't have because of everything they don't have. And I guess that's equally as important. You know, nobody should forget. Nobody should forget these people. You know, I am these people sometimes. Um, and I'm also, you know, grateful sometimes. I think you can be both. But the week between Christmas and New Year has been an all right week. You know, I've been working a bit on my day job, and then I did my last gig of the year, and it was fun. You know, I really enjoyed it. I was in Croydon, and Big Smoke Comedy. You know, it's a nice night, and yeah, it was. Interesting being there. You know, there were loads of hangover people, either audience members or comedians, and it's almost 1 year since I stopped drinking. That is, that's wild. You know, I never thought that I would go sober. You know, I just thought I'm gonna stop drinking for a while, and I ended up not drinking again, or at least for the time being. Even though actually the other night I was out, and I was having dinner with some other friends, and they were drinking some good stuff, you know, some nice spirits, and I was smelling the bottles, you know, and reminiscing on the memories I had as a hospitality worker, you know, and it reminded me of some of the good times, you know, some of the fun nights when I used to go out and get shit faced, and then work, you know, a couple hours later, and now I can't work. Now I can't work even if I'm not drunk. So yeah, I think it's right for me. I think is the best thing to do. You know, I have a bit of an addictive personality. I'm aware of that, and you know, I think yeah, I've been running loads. I've done over 350, around 350 miles this year, and that's a big jump from the 50 miles the year before this. So Yeah, I've been climbing more recently. That was nice, but my forearms hurt so much. I'm in so much pain. I don't think I want to hold this microphone for too long. I'm gonna be honest with you. So that's why I'll introduce you to my next guest, Barbara. Barbara Fernandez. She's a comedian, a musical comedian, based in London. She's an interesting person. You know, she's got some cool stuff to share, and I guess most importantly, but not most importantly, however, pretty important. She's also a BPD person. You know, she's been diagnosed with borderline personality disorder, just like me. But our stories, you know, same as anything, pretty much anything in the world, is not the same. So it was interesting to listen to her story, you know, see what she's been up to, how she's dealing with this, you know, how she incorporates it into her comedy, and it was very interesting. I think she's got a brilliant idea, you know, about creating more awareness, you know, about people living with borderline, and just educating others, and you know, making it fun as well. It's a cool. It was a cool conversation, you know, and I think it's a nice way to start the year, you know. So what else from me? I don't know. I think that's it. To be fair, I just want you to, you know, enjoy this year. If you're still celebrating, keep on celebrating. If you need some time to, you know, reflect and relax, you know. Just look after yourselves, folks, because I remember someone told me that if you let the world wind you up, it will. So I guess don't let it wind you up. I don't know. But yeah, thanks for listening. We'll crack on with the episode. Happy New Year once again. Look after yourselves, and I'll catch you in a bit. All right, brilliant. So, yes, hi Barbara, how you doing?
Yes, I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm all right. Thanks. Have you been gigging much recently?
Oh yeah, a lot. I mean, I always gig a lot, but and then like last night I was emceeing as well. I do that, and I'm gigging a lot, and I'm taking a comedy course at the moment, so writing a lot of new stuff with that because the homework is writing 10 jokes a day. So, oh, cool. I can't even begin to describe it. Well, it's got me writing 10 jokes a day. I mean, they're not good jokes, you know, most of them are absolute rubbish, but, coming from somebody, I mean, I used to force myself, I don't know how other people do it, but because everyone's like, oh, you need to write every day, da, da, da. So what I do is I don't, I used to read on the tube and stuff or on the train, and I don't do that now. Now I still read, but at other times. Now I just have my phone or my laptop, and then when I'm traveling, I'm just like, right, okay, writing time. And because I'm going somewhere every day I'm editing a set, or I'm at the moment now like writing new stuff and everything. So it's really good because it means over time you get, even if like 90% of it is absolute rubbish, you might have 10% that could turn into something good. So over time that can add up.
I think building that muscle memory as well, it's kind of, you know, important, because I got to the point now where, I mean, I just write, and I usually do the same stuff over and over again, just trying to make it, you know, as good as possible. Yeah, I think that getting into the habit of having to write, or at least I think to me the way it's helping me is writing, is that I if I get an idea and I think, oh, that can actually go somewhere, I just pull my phone out really quickly and I just like write it there so that it doesn't get lost. Because sometimes it happens when I go to the gigs or when I come home from a gig where I'm like, oh my god, that could have been the next thing in this joke, and it would have been much better, or I could have said this before, and then it just kind of, I just forget about it. While
Yeah, I have to say I write it. Yeah, I write it immediately. Sometimes I it wakes me up. Like this used to happen with songs, and because I've written some songs as well, like, but not in any big deal way, but I used to wake up with like a song in my head or something, and I knew I had to record it on the voice recorder because otherwise I would forget it, which was kind of annoying because I really wanted to go back to sleep. Now it happens with with jokes and stuff. Well, actually, it happened sometimes. It doesn't happen quite so much in the middle of the night anymore. Now it tends to happen like when I first wake up, but I really want to just sort of stay asleep a bit. So, in fact, that was how I wrote. One of my favorite things that I've ever written, which is a song about borderline personality disorder. That song came like in a couple of mornings. I literally woke up one morning and heard the chorus in my head with the words and everything. And I thought, oh my goodness, it was really weird. So I recorded it, and then I just recorded the chorus, and I said, okay, well, I guess I can come back to that later and write some more of this. This could be something decent. And then weirdly, this is the first time this has happened. The next morning I woke up and I had the verse, and like not all the words, but a verse, like a full verse. And I was, this is really weird. So I recorded the verse, and then this is even stranger. On the third morning, when I woke up, I had an intro. I didn't think I needed an intro. I thought I was going to just, do verse chorus. But I had like a slow kind of intro thing. It was really, that hasn't happened with any of my other songs. But so that whole song was written that way. I mean, obviously, then I edited it a bit, but I just
sounds.
So it's weird. I don't even feel like that one's mine. I just feel like somebody put it in my brain. I mean, it is mine. It's an original song, but yeah.
Wow, no, that sounds amazing. It's like like a J.K. Rowling Harry Potter kind of. It just like writes itself, and you're, whoa, what's happening? Wow.
Yeah, that was pretty much. Yeah.
No, I mean, I think what actually reminded me of you. Have you ever seen Seinfeld? When he wakes up to write a joke and he forgets the joke, and he's trying the whole day to write the song again. But I think there was a bit where he was forcing himself to go to sleep so that he would. Get back into that state.
Yeah.
That's incredible. I think.
Yeah, that was lucky. I think it was just luck. I think it was just I've been wanting to write something about borderline personality disorder for a while because that's how I got into comedy. But yeah, that was a lucky break to have the whole song delivered like that.
It must have had to do with you having it in the back of your mind, or like somehow. Just putting pieces together.
Yeah, I'm a singer. I was a professional singer for, quite a while. So yeah, like I said, I did write a lot of songs before. So I do often wake up with like a snippet of a melody in my head. And sometimes I will wake up with like a chorus that has melody plus words. And I'll record it, but most of the time I won't really do anything with it. But this was like 3 consecutive days. That was really weird. I'd never had that before with each day a different piece. It was very strange.
That sounds. This is, I think, the fact that it was 3 days one, and you had like a little bit every day. Because I do sometimes have some of my dreams, nightmares, or things that are like happening, and it stays there. Sometimes it goes back, but I think the fact it's. Wow, no. But how long you've been? So, because you said you did comedy for 2.5 years. When did you start doing music?
That was a very long time ago. I mean, ever since I was little, I started doing like dancing lessons and singing lessons and acting lessons. I was doing. The first thing I started was like dancing and stuff, and then at the end of every year, we would have this little dance recital. So I was probably like 8 years old or something when I did my first one, where you would sing a little song. Like it was so cheesy. I would sing a little song and then do some tap dancing, So it was something silly, like I would do something like diamonds, like little snippets of Marilyn Monroe's "Diamonds Are a Girl's Best Friend," and then I would tap dance around the stage like it was with a feather boa. That was very cheesy. but that's
How
when
did you
I
get?
started. Yeah.
How did you get to be so? I don't know, creative. Were your parents like artists as well, or what got you into like such like this artistic side so early?
I mean, I remember watching. Well, there's two answers. The first one is, yeah, I remember watching. My mom was watching Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers. This is old now, right? Doing some, dance stuff. I think it was T for Two. I don't remember what it was, but I remember watching it. And I saw it, and I just said to my mom, "Oh, I want to do that." I literally pointed at the screen. I was like, "I want to do that." She's like, "Oh, okay." So then she looked up a, dancing school, and then the rest is history. And then I found out it was only for some reason my mom didn't tell me until I was at uni, because I wanted to go to, because then it just didn't stop. Then I was doing musical theater, like, amateur community musical theater and stuff. And then I did, and then I wanted to go to, I did a bunch of, school productions and all that stuff. And then I wanted to go to the High School for Performing Arts in Manhattan. I'm from New York. So I wanted to go to the high school that's in the movie Fame, where everybody like sings and dances and all that stuff. And my mom was like, "Oh, you won't be happy there. No, you have to get, you might have to get a real job. You won't be happy if you're famous. Not that I, decided I was going to be famous, but she was like, oh, because she's met a lot of famous people because she used to be an airline hostess for TWA. So she met Walt Disney and Paul Newman and just like a bunch of famous people. And she was like, oh, most of them didn't seem happy. So she decided I wasn't going to be happy if I pursued a creative career. It was like, oh, thanks a lot. So she was like, oh, you have to go to university at least to get a degree. So I did a theater degree. And it was only once I was at university, because it wasn't like she would like my mom was encouraging in the sense that she would pay for dancing lessons and take me to, because she knew it was making me happy. But in the back of her mind, she was always like, well, yeah, but you can't make any money from it. This is just her having fun. And she did spend a lot of time doing that. I remember going from one dance recital to the other, and this is so American, but we would just literally like stop at a McDonald's or something so that we could eat something on the way to the show kind of scenario. So she spent a lot of time doing it. But once I was at uni, it was only then that she told me that I'm the sixth generation in a straight line of performers, because like my mom sang at a jazz club in Harlem while she was being an airline stewardess, and she was offered to open up for Jack Benny, who was, I don't know who, I know he was super famous, but I don't know who he is. It was a long time ago, before my time. But she decided that wasn't stable enough. She wanted her stable job. And then my grandmother was a singer and a pianist. And then her husband was a radio engineer. So he had a big radio station, and he invented the first multi-directional microphone, the one you can sing into from all sides. He invented that apparently. And then he was a saxophone player, and he was it some other relative did the Bush, what do they call it? Some famous saxophone. He invented that. And then my great-grandfather was a vaudeville performer. So it's really weird. And she didn't tell me till I was, at university. I thought, well, that might have been kind of cool to know beforehand, But yeah, there's definitely genetics in there. And then for my kids, because I have two kids, they're in their early 20s, and I deliberately, I didn't want to, influence them one way or the other. My thing was well, just find what makes you happy. And so, of course, one of them plays guitar and, can sing and is, very good musically. And she's done sound engineer stuff, and she's looking to do, she's a very good actress as well, better than me. And then my son is doing animation, he wants to do storyboards, stuff like that. And he did a film degree, and their dad is a mathematician. So their dad was really disappointed. No one's going into no one's using math. They both want to be creative like their mom. So
wow, that's that's huge. I had no idea.
It's in the genes, I guess.
Wow.
I don't know. Okay. But also, apparently, and this is an added thing. I mean, I'm mental illness also runs in my family. Yay! And apparently, borderline personality disorder also, I think probably all mental health things. But they do say that one of the beneficial, there aren't any benefits particularly that I can think of having BPD, but apparently it makes people very creative. So I don't know. Well, I understand why. It's because the brain, because like for people who don't know who it is, it's what it is, who it is, it's the person. For people who don't know what it is, if anyone's listening doesn't know what it is, it's a mental health condition that is highly stigmatized. So most of the time people think, oh, that's like Glenn Close in Fatal Attraction, or oh, that's like Amber Heard when there were all those rumors that she was, going to the toilet and Johnny did what's his face's bed and all this stuff. No, that's not what it is. It's a problem with regulating emotions, where it's a bit like, the way I describe it in my comedy set is I say it's a bit like my emotional thermostat is busted. So you get extreme emotions really quickly. Which is why the two most difficult careers are, comedian or serial killer. So, I mean, I joke about it, but not that there's a lot of us that are serial killers. Not really. That's more, that's not to be confused with narcissism. People confuse the two. Anyway, so yeah, they confuse the two, and it's a completely different thing. But the thing about the brain of somebody that has BPD is that there are a lot, the amygdala, so the threat center, the part of the brain that, when we see a threat and it goes, run, like that bit is bigger than normal. You can see this on brain scans as well. You can actually see a BPD brain is different from like, a neurotypical brain, because the amygdala, the threat center is bigger than normal. And then the prefrontal cortex, so the bit at the front of our brain that makes rational decisions, is smaller. Hence the impulsivity. But of course, that's really great for comedy. If you're highly impulsive and highly unpredictable, your brain is used to thinking faster. And the way that my ex-therapist described it, he said it's a bit like the velociraptors in Jurassic Park. I'll try to describe it. It's easier to see it visually, but when you see when a velociraptor, or any predator for that matter, but especially like the velociraptor, a velociraptor hears a noise and then boom, the head turns really fast, lightning fast, right? Faster than most animals or creatures, right? It's a bit like that. It's a bit like having that, like the brain is very quick because it's usually caused by trauma. Not all the time, but most of the time, borderline personality disorder is caused by some form of childhood trauma, which means that for example, in my case, as a very young child, I learned, the world is dangerous. I have to look out for myself. I could die or be harmed at any time. So the brain, for survival purposes, the brain learns to react really, really, really quickly, and it learns to look for danger really quickly, which is why the amygdala gets bigger, because the brain thinks that it's going to keep me safer to be able to look for danger fast rather than make rational decisions. That bit gets smaller. I guess it has less room. I don't know. The amygdala is like, this is my hood, get out of here. But yeah, so that's why I think there's the whole creativity thing, because we're used to jumping from one space to another very quickly, to seeing, and it's like with people with ADHD as well, because BPD has some overlaps with other mental health conditions. I looked them up. I found 5, which all are true for me in one way or another, which is what my show about borderline personality disorder is about. It's about looking at each of those overlaps. I didn't do 5. When I wrote the show, I only found 4, but then I found a 5th one. I was like, oh. So the first 4 that I found are the most common one is bipolar, because people often get misdiagnosed with bipolar. So there's bipolar, ADHD, that's a big one, psychosis, and what was the other? ADHD, bipolar, psychosis, and what was the 4th one? Wait a minute, I'm gonna have to look it up on me. Anyway, the 5th one that I found was autism, but I was just like, I've already written the show. But like when I say overlaps, like there are some characteristics of each. PTSD, that's the other one. There are some characteristics of each of those that kind of bleed through, which is why it's called borderline personality disorder, because it sits on the border of other mental health conditions, and there's some leakage, So, for example, with the ADHD, yeah, I definitely see the whole jumping from one topic to another really quickly, and which of course is highly creative, right? And then there's the PTSD, which is, we're quite good at movies because scary movies because jump scare. Like sometimes someone will sit down at a table next to me that will make me jump for no apparent reason. And then the autism, I see that in the because I mean autism that manifests in many different ways, like all mental health conditions. Autism manifests in many different ways. You can't say, oh, all autistic people or all people with autism are the same because they're not. But for example, one characteristic that I can definitely see is the need for details, the need for knowing the rules about things. Like that's just how it shows up in me. Like I like to know the rules. I like to know how things work. I like to know. Yeah, it's not that I'm not particularly concerned with going to new places, which is not very autistic at all. But that little bit about the rules and the lists and the. So when you look this up online, like you can see these kind of Venn diagrams with these huge overlaps, all these different conditions. And yeah, I've worked that into my show about borderline personality disorder, where what I try to do is through song, I portray each of these mental health conditions. So, for example, there's a song that I do in the show about ADHD. There's one about PTSD. There's one about bipolar. One about psychosis. Like I said, I didn't do the autism one, so I found that out later. And for me, that's the one that's the least. For me personally, that has the least impact. That's not something where I immediately thought, oh yeah, there's probably definitely a bit of this. So yeah, I don't know if that explains anything about borderline personality disorder, but there's also, I mean, there's a lot of, darker sides to it, but I think there's a darker side to anybody that's highly creative. You get the whole like manic depressive thing, and there's a lot of suicide ideation and not very fun.
Yeah, and I think I actually, my referral to a psychiatrist was actually for bipolar disorder, and they gave me those questionnaire things that I had to fill up, and the doctor was like, well, it seems like it was like based on this questionnaire you are bipolar, but I don't believe that is the case because the dysregulations are more frequent than how because apparently his way of explaining it was that when you have the high energy phases, they can take up to 3 days, while to me it's just, again, the emotional dysregulation happens it can happen in the same day, but I can wake up feeling.
Well, that's more more borderline.
That was his argument for that was his way of looking at it. I'm like, yeah, fair, and I agree. I think one of my someone that I spoke with, as in like a friend of mine did say to me. Because I remember when I thought I had I had an assessment for psychosis as well, and I was just like, this is so weird. But my friend did say that this is why it's a spectrum. It's not like, because you don't get people who, like you said, people who have autism to have everything that's like describing autism, or people who have ADHD. It's not everyone who has ADHD behaves in the exact same way. And I actually noticed that, for example, from the DBT that you've done as well, the dialectical behavioral therapy. Some people with ADHD do it as well, and CPTSD. So it's kind of, you see that it's and I think the idea of like putting a show about it, it's incredible, because it's I guess it's like raising awareness, but in a funny way, which
well, that's what I want to do, because I can't seem to do it any other way, because I think it's the best way to. I mean, it's highly stigmatized, borderline personality disorder, so much so that there are some psychiatrists who will misdiagnose young people on purpose with bipolar, so that they don't get the stigma associated with borderline personality disorder. Yep. There's the statistics and everything. They the reason is because the old medical model for borderline person, for BPD, even say it shorter, was that it was people used to think, oh, these people are incurable. There's nothing you can do. They're all manipulative. They just want you to get you to believe stuff. So you would have people, and I, when I first got diagnosed with it, I went on some like online forums, and the things people were saying were just like, there was a woman who had, she went to the emergency room because she had severe stomach pains. And when they saw on her folder, on her medical records, that she has BPD, they were like, you're just making it up. They sent her away. Turned out she had appendicitis. When she could barely walk, she went back into the hospital, and then of course she had to go straight into the emergency room. Yeah, and the therapist that I worked with, Daryl Christie, he was one of the first people to work with BPD in the UK. He was trained by Marsha Linehan, who wrote the big, thick Bible on dialectical behavioral therapy, because she had BPD, and she was in a mental institution for years. She was very, 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 very smart. She was a researcher, a scientist. She was in this. She couldn't understand why these emotions were just like overtaking her and overwhelming her. I mean, she was in a mental institution for years. She used to like throw herself off of the bed and bang her head on the floor. I've read her autobiography, and she was like, "This is horrible. This is like living in hell. I have to figure out what this is," because nobody knew what BPD was. She was like, "I have to figure," because this was what, I think in the 60s, 70s. She was like, "I have to figure out what this is, and I'm gonna sort it. I'm gonna figure out what it is, and I'm gonna help people with this. This is ridiculous." And it took her years, but she did get better. She got out of the mental health institution, and then she got into research. No one wanted to fund her research because she wanted to work with suicidal people, and they were like, "No, those people are high risk." So they wouldn't fund her research. She really struggled. She finally found someone to fund her research. So she was able to do the research that she needed to do to really like discover borderline personality disorder, and to discover that, oh, it's because these people's brains are different. They need to learn to reduce the amygdala themselves by rewiring the brain, by doing these emotion regulation techniques, which of course she describes in that big, thick book, Dialectical Behavioral Therapy, the workbook. And once she was doing that, she saw that, people started to improve and to be able to control it and everything. And so so Daryl Christie, like I said, she trained him, and he was one of, I think, 8 people or something in the UK that at that time that started working with people with BPD. And he was telling me a lot of stuff, and because he always approaches it as, it's not so much a therapy that you have to do for BPD, it's more like a science. They almost called it a science, apparently, because it's not traditional therapy where you just like talk about, oh, your childhood experiences. It's not that. It's, you learn techniques to rewire your brain so that when you're overwhelmed with rage or overwhelmed with sadness or whatever strong emotion it is, you learn how to control that emotion. And so I'll give an example. So let's see. For example, there's a skill called, this is going to sound really, really basic, but it is a skill, called check the facts. And check the facts, it's a very simple thing. So for example, I don't know, you get a text, I'll give my personal example. For example, I did a gig and I had prepared this parody song of the Mariah Carey Christmas song, All I Want for Christmas Is You, right? So, and I had a really bad cold, and it was at my favorite club at GMB Comedy in London, which is where I really was able to practice loads and, just learn so much. And so Kyle Wallace, the guy who runs that, he was emceeing, and I didn't know if I was going to be able to sing it or not because my cold was so bad and my throat was not very good. So I tested it in the loo a bit before going on stage, and I really wanted to do it. And I thought, oh, it'll be okay. It was not okay. Like I could barely get the high note. It was like my voice kind of cracked in the middle. It was so embarrassing. And because it's a song, it wasn't like I could just stop halfway through, although maybe I should have done. Anyway, long story short, at the end of the night, he looks at me and he just goes, "Barbara, go home." And so I start to walk up the stairs, and then I feel the spiral starting. Immediately, I'm just like, uh-oh, he's really mad at me. I've disappointed him. Oh, he's not going to want to give me gigs anymore. Oh, he's really mad at me. Oh, this is going to wreck my friendship with him. Oh, I'm just so rubbish. Oh, nobody likes me. You know, that kind of downward spiral. I could feel it starting, right? And then as I'm walking to the tube, and I'm like, no, I have to stop this before it goes out of control. What can I do? What can I do? What skill can I use? Because that was what I was learning, right? I thought, okay, check the facts. How can I check the facts? So I sent him a Facebook message, and I said, can I just check a fact with you? When you said go home, I thought you were mad at me, that I disappointed you, and made me kind of, I'm kind of worried that I made you mad, and that I've disappointed you. And he said, no. He said, I was worried for you because I was afraid you might have hurt your voice. I just wanted you to go home and rest. So as soon as I got that fact, of course, the emotion just dissipated and the spiral stopped, right? So for example, those people who get a text from a friend or something, right? Canceling plans to go out, let's say, right? And that might send somebody into a spiral, right? They might be like, oh, this person doesn't like me. Oh, they never want to see me. And before you know it, they're depressed or they're mad or insert powerful emotion, right? But by checking the facts, right, you can dissipate that emotion. And, because a lot of times you find out, oh, it's actually because, their car broke down, or you know what I mean? Like so that's just one tiny example, right? Because as you know, the book is really thick and there's a load of skills to learn, and it took me about 1.5 years. What I find is really cool is that, you can learn, anyone can learn, not just people with BPD, to control extreme emotions through using and learning and using these emotion regulation skills. Now, my therapist, Daryl Christie, he was working with someone called Marie, I can't remember her last name, but the two of them had designed a curriculum to use in schools because, of course, little kids, like everybody struggles with extreme emotions. They wanted to teach this to children, teach these skills to kids, so that everyone, doesn't matter if you have a mental health condition or not, everyone can learn how to control these extreme emotions. Everyone can learn to check facts with their friends so they don't break up friendships for nothing, all that kind of stuff. It was all set to go. It was going to be rolled out in schools in the UK and everything, and then David Cameron came in and wrecked it and took the budget away, so it never got. So anyway, so what I'm doing, my little mission in my little corner of the world is, I've written this show about borderline personality disorder where, I only have 52 minutes, so I can't do everything. But I am presenting each of the ADHD, bipolar, psychosis, I'm presenting what borderline personality disorder is for me through song and stuff, so people get a sense of what it is. That's going to be one show. Then I have another show that's more just like my normal club set, because I don't always talk about the mental health stuff in my comedy because sometimes people don't want to hear it. Or if you have, 10 comedians on the bill and 5 of them are talking about, I don't want to be number 6, right? So, and if I go outside of London, I have discovered that when there's an older demographic, they don't necessarily want to hear about mental health stuff. They think it's funnier for me to talk about my ex-husbands, because I have a lot of stories about my life that makes me laugh, right? And I still use music for that. So, I sing about ex-husbands and Scientologists and all kinds of weird stuff. So, anyway, so then I have that show, which is more like my club set, which is not about mental health. And then the third show that I'm going to do is I'm going to take some of the most accessible emotion regulation skills, and I'm going to put them to music. So I'm going to teach people emotion regulation skills through songs. So for example, the check the facts one that I said to you, I'm going to do a song about called Check the Facts, right? Because that's the only way I know to get this information out.
Sounds good.
Yeah, it's going to be really fun. I had that idea. I was like, whoa. But of course, there's an order that I have to do these things in. Because I'm right.
Sounds good, because I use the book as well, and I'm still learning, and I'm still doing the therapy on week 15 now. I'm going on week, so I only got 5 more weeks to go. But sometimes I see stuff and I think, how do other people don't know about this? It's weird, because
exactly.
For example, I go to work and I even go to a gig and I see, I remember this when say someone goes on stage and they're and I do that sometimes as well. I'm like, oh no, I think I haven't done well at all, and you just like allow yourself to go on stage, and you can see the
Yeah.
difference in like how you hold in the mic, on what you're doing with your hands, how you're, I'm taking everything to like a terrible ending, and I'm like, oh, this is just horrible. And then
Yeah.
looking back at it, I'm like, oh God, that it's. I think when I started doing DBT, it was such an I was like, what is this? This is things that like, this sounds so, because check the facts is one that I use loads. I use the observe a lot and describe the emotion.
Yeah.
I think that's my favorite, because it helps me when I feel overwhelmed, because I'm like, oh, I just feel stuff, and then if I actually can narrow it down to one, the one only feeling, I'm like, oh, I'm not sad, I'm angry, like, rather than being, like, I'm happy. And like sometimes it happens where I'm a bit too excited, like I'm overexcited, and that's not good either. And I'm just, and but you see, this is the kind of things where I had no idea about the thing about like for kids, but I could have done with that when I was in school, to be fair, because we had psychology we had logic and psychology in my curriculum, but we used to do some sort of random stuff that, again, Lucy, I don't even remember it, and I've never used it since I left school. While with things like that, because I see it in my I don't know, I see it like in my niece and my nephew. I see it in adults now. Sometimes when I see people kind of losing it is not the most sensible word, but and I'm like, oh man, you could use you could use some distress tolerance right now, and that will.
Well, I in fact, I said to my ex-therapist, because when I started doing comedy, it was literally because he said, "What's something you've always wanted to do?" And I said, "Well, I've always wanted to do stand-up comedy ever since at uni, really. But I just would watch people and think, oh no, I can never do that. I just can't do it, because I can't remember other people's jokes. I honestly can't remember other people's jokes. No idea. They just go in one ear and out the other. I'll laugh and find them funny, but I won't remember them. So I just thought, oh, I guess I can't remember jokes. But it's different when they're your own, of course, but I didn't know that. So I just, shut it out. Typical BPD, like black and white extreme thinking. I was like, nope, I can't do it. I won't even watch comedy. I won't even do comedy. So that was why I did a comedy course, because he was like, what's the thing you always wanted to do? Because I needed to have I was struggling to find some sort of like meaning to my life and stuff. So the point I was making with that was that when I finished the dialectical behavioral therapy and all of that, I had been doing comedy for about 3 or 4 months. And I remember saying to him, like, I've gone from being, way dysregulated emotionally, with emotions all over the place, to actually being more centered and more controlled than most of the people I know. It's gone completely the other way, because, but that's what it's like, because we've learned these skills, right? So I really believe that everybody should learn them. So I think, well, what I'm going to do with the third show, the one about the skills and everything, my aim is to take that around the country and do it for kids and stuff, because I think if I make a big enough splash about it, I'm hoping it will get noticed, and what I did over lockdown, and I'm mentioning this because if anyone's listening and thinking, oh, I could really use some of that, or like, obviously anything that Marsha Linehan has written is fantastic. Her workbook on dialectical behavioral therapy is absolutely incredible. Of course, it helps to work through it with a therapist, but it's even the kind of book, I believe, where people can just, they can get a lot out of it themselves if they have no other recourse. There's also a guy called Dr. Fox on YouTube who does he's a therapist specialized in BPD, and he does really good videos about it. For example, the difference between BPD and narcissism, or why do people with BPD struggle in relationships, all that kind of stuff. And what I did over lockdown was I co-hosted weekly live streams at a charity in London, which is called Mind, Body, and Soul, charity. And I helped them. Well, we set up something called Mindset, and Mindset it's an Instagram channel. It's on YouTube as well. There's a lot of videos on there, and we basically we're teaching young people over lockdown how to deal with extreme emotions, because there's all those uni students that were shut in these tiny rooms. I mean, it must have been so horrible for them, and we wanted to help them. So that's quite a big resource if anybody is listening and thinking, oh, I could really use some help, whatever.
I've seen it on your on one of your like Instagram highlights as well. Yeah.
I put it on my. I put it on there on my link tree. I think as well. Maybe I don't.
How did you find the charity?
Through my ex-therapist, because he volunteered with them. Well, he still does, because they run programs to help. He through him. He was just like, because when we were talking about, when he was like, oh, what are some goals you have? What are some things you would like to do? And one of the things that I said, in addition to the comedy, I said, I really want to help people with BPD. I want to help because there's, the more I looked into it, the more I saw how stigmatized it was. Like there are people right now on courses, and I know because one of them talked about it in this Facebook group. There are people right now who are on courses studying to become mental health practitioners because they want to help people. They are being told, not by all teachers, but by some teachers, university professors, some, are telling them that people with BPD are still, manipulative, can't be helped, can't be cured. There's no cure, but you can manage it. So they are still being fed incorrect information. The stigma is still, very much out there. I was up at the Edinburgh Comedy Festival. I go up there every year, and I've gone 2 years running now. And last year when I went, there were two separate instances. It was ironic. I saw one show, very, very good show, about a woman talking about her mom, growing up with a mom with narcissism. And she mentioned narcissism and BPD in the same sentence. And I said to her after the show, I said, I'm sorry, I loved your show, but there was one sentence I had trouble with. BPD is not the same as narcissism. They're very different disorders. And I said, here's Dr. Fox's video where he talks about it. You'll see they're not the same. And she was like, oh, thank you so much for telling me, because that contributes to the stigma as well, because a narcissist won't want help because they think there's nothing wrong. Someone with BPD is desperate for help, and yet, like, I know people with BPD who have felt suicidal, who have gone to A&E and have been turned away because they're just like, oh no, we can't help you, call 111, which of course is useless. It's useless for that kind of thing, because then of course, you can't just, the trouble with BPD is because it's so difficult to diagnose, because it overlaps with so many different mental health conditions. It's not like you can go to your average therapist or your average counselor around the corner and get effective help for it. You got to go with somebody who knows what this is and who knows how to deal with it, because sometimes we can even fool ourselves into thinking, oh, what I really feel is this, or what I really think is that. And anyway, so I said to him that I wanted to help these people, and I want to help erase the stigma and everything like that. So that's why he told me about the live stream, and that's how I got involved in that. And because I'm a video presenter and I'm a voiceover artist, that's how I make my, money, apart from, I make a small amount with comedy, but I'm mostly a voiceover artist. I record audiobooks and stuff. I could put those skills to use. In fact, one of the books, while I was in Edinburgh, that I was recording, it was ironic. I was recording an audiobook, How to Deal with Narcissists, for some company, right? And in the book, they also had a line about BPD and how it was incorrect, and how it was lumping it in with narcissists and saying that, they're dangerous, manipulative people that you should stay away from, that don't want help. And so I messaged the guy and I said, can you please tell the author this is actually not correct? And so I gave him the Dr. Fox video, and it was good. Wow. They took it out. It was like, good thing it was me narrating that, yeah, I mean, I'm sure that there are some, there could be some narcissists. I don't want to like diss narcissists or something and say that they're horrible people, because I'm sure there are, there's, I can't say that, right? That wouldn't be right. All I can say is that it often gets confused with BPD, and it's not the same. So, and then, yeah, people like to stigmatize things, but what gets me is that the stigma is probably more prevalent in the medical profession than it is in the general public. In my experience, if I tell somebody in the general public that I have BPD, they don't know what it is, but they want to understand. Most of the time, they'll be like, "Oh, what's that?" Right? If I tell somebody in the medical profession, they'll be like, "Oh," like I don't tell them now. I don't say, because now I know that if I say, I will immediately be seen as manipulative, untreatable. That's why psychiatrists will give young people a bipolar diagnosis on purpose. They don't want those people at 20, 21, 22 years old to carry that stigma their whole lives.
No, that's I never.
So I'm fighting it. Yeah, that's how bad it is.
This is mad.
Yeah, it is mad. I mean, it'll get better. I'm sure it will.
Hopefully, yeah.
But how many years will it take?
I agree. Yeah. I think it's. I mean, I think when I found out about me having to live with borderline, I was kind of, what's that? And then I did some research, and I was like, oh God, this sounds awful. But I was thinking about what you said with the stigma, and I was like, it's like you said, from people that I know, or people that I hang out with, my comedy friends, or my any friend's family, they would be like, oh, what's that? What does it mean? While now when you mention it, I do realize, like, I had a couple of visits at the I had to see like my GP and stuff like this, and I had to see I had to see a doctor recently, and there was a weird incident where they wouldn't believe me to what extent I basically, because I kept on asking to be assessed for like psychosis, because I had this thing where I just had those like terrible, I just couldn't sleep. I just felt every time I'd fall asleep, I'd have like either idolization, or I'd think about not existing and stuff like that, and I was like, what the fuck is going on? This is so, and I remember speaking with the doctor, and it was like, no, I don't think that's it. And it seemed very, again, it might be, but at the time it seemed very dismissive, and I just had to make myself understand that he has no reason. But now when you said it, this is just came back in my head, and again, it's nothing to say, because look, as it turns out, after I've changed something with my medication and my lifestyle, I've changed my lifestyle a little bit. I actually feel better. And I don't have the same like night terrors that I used to have, but it's incredible. I didn't even know about this.
Well, yeah, and also what that means, of course, is that mental health practitioners aren't getting the education that they need to help people anyway with it. So they don't know what to. It's not entirely their fault, right? They don't know what to do because they weren't.
Yeah,
they weren't trained in it. They don't know how to.
I was going to say, it's kind of like a black box, where it's like nobody wants to, or like only two people in the world know how to open it. And
and also, like, not everybody, like, just like with anything, not everybody with BPD is automatically, a well-meaning person that wants to get better, right? Like my ex-therapist, he used to, he lives in Portugal now. He wanted a quieter life, probably after dealing with me, but he used to, he worked they used to call him in to like sort out trouble hospitals, right? Where they were having real problems and stuff. And so he went to this one place where supposedly they had this group. It was supposed to be like a therapy group to help people with BPD. And he got there, and his thing was always like, he won't work with somebody for more than like a year. So it took me like a year and a half, but I spent the last couple of months with somebody else because he we got to a point, and there was just this last little bit, and then I got the rest of it with her. But his thing is, you do it for a year, you do it intensely, and then, then you've learned the skills until you can do the rest of it yourself. But he went to this place, and there were like 16 people, and it was anarchy. The staff didn't know how to deal with these people. The people just decided that they could just go in and do whatever they want and take things over and just hang out and chat and just be really manipulative and awful. So, we're not all saints, right? But, and so nobody was getting any help because these people that didn't want to be, it doesn't take many, right? You know how, like, if you have a group and you have a couple of ringleaders, right? Well, those ringleaders, they didn't want to get better. They didn't want anybody else to get better. They just wanted attention for themselves and stuff. So he went in there and he was like, right, you get out, you get out, you get out, you get out. He threw out like half of them. And then, of course, turned it around and stuff. But the mental health practitioners, they were too scared to deal with that group of people because no one had trained them. Yeah. They didn't know. They didn't know that sometimes you have to be tough with people, and they weren't given the skills that they needed. So then he also trains. He still does this, I think. He trains hospital staff as well because they haven't been properly trained with it. And it doesn't take that much. Like I went to one because he wanted to bring somebody with BPD to do like an acting out thing. Because he knows I did, acting and stuff. He wanted to. It was really funny because basically what it was a course for mental health practitioners to learn how to help people with BPD. And so he wanted me to basically like have a meltdown. Like I went there and nobody knew that I was there as a plant, I was supposed to be one of the students, right? So he shows this film. And he had told me what to do and stuff like that. So at one point during the film, like I start crying and having this meltdown, like, oh, in the middle of the room, like going, oh, like this. And he wanted to see what they would do. He wanted to see if they would like help me and stuff. It was really funny. So he just threw them in the deep end and stuff. And then one or two people came over. Most people didn't because they were too scared. And then at one point, he let it go on for ages. I'm sitting there having this meltdown, pretend meltdown, right? Going, while I'm thinking in my head, will you just come over and stop this now? I'm tired of doing this. This is really embarrassing, right? It felt like an eternity. It went for ages. And then he finally comes over and he's like, right, okay, let me deal with her now. And then he takes me out. And as soon as he takes me out of the room, he starts laughing. He was like, that was awesome. You did such a great job. He's giving me these high fives. I'm like, oh, this was horrible. And then we walk back, and then he's like, right, you're going to just walk back and be yourself now. And I'm like, thank you. Thank God for that. So then we walk back in the room, and he's like, right, big round of applause for Barbara. And they were all like, oh.
God, how many, did you have to do that only once, or have you done it a couple of times?
No, only once. It was just for the one because he doesn't do these courses very often. Wow. But yeah, I think it was really funny. Yeah, but yeah, he trains them because they haven't had the help. They haven't had the training they need. So
yeah, that makes. I mean, it's sad, but I also think that it's work in progress for sure.
Yeah, but I think comedy is the way that I can, I
get that. I feel like that with my comedy, even with this, the reason why I started recording this, and even actually the reason why it's called it's got the name that it has. The podcast is just about how hopefully someone will see that even though, because my first fear and my first thing was, oh God, I can never stop this. While now it's like, well, it doesn't matter. I can still live with it, and I can still do, some cool stuff and things that I want to do. So that's my way of doing my bit, or like that's the way for me to feel a little bit better about myself, or like I'm doing something you know?
Yeah. Well, there's something that Daryl told me once that I think that relates to what you said. I think you'll find it really helpful because I wanted to put it in my show, but I didn't have enough time, and it's not that relevant to people who don't have BPD. But he told me, well, he told us because it was in a skills group. He was like, although this applies to anybody, I think that's struggling with something quite intense, like bipolar is probably quite similar. He said having BPD, it's a bit like having wild horses. Like most people that don't have it, they have domesticated horses. But if you have wild horses, the thing about a wild horse, he said, it's kind of like having wild horses who are thoroughbreds. So at the moment, they're all over and I wrote a whole text about it, about my wild horses and stuff that I shared with him. And anyway, he said it's like having wild horses. At first, you can't control them, and they're kind of all over the place. However, once you learn to control them, they'll take you faster and faster than any other horse for anybody else. It's like having a superpower. You just don't know how to control it yet.
That makes sense. It sounds beautiful.
And I thought that's pretty cool.
Yeah,
right?
I think I had this thing where I was chatting with one of my friends, with James, and I was like, it's like learning how to tame a lion, because at first you're like, oh, this guy's gonna kill me, he's gonna eat me up.
Yeah.
And then now you're slowly like, oh, he's about to, I don't know, roar, and then I just pull a toy, and I'm like, yeah, this thing is like squeaking, and then you just the lion relaxes, and I'm like, oh wow, this is pretty impressive. But I was talking about the work in progress. So you've got, it's a lot, because you got like one show which is your club set. You got the work in progress. You're planning for this year to go to some again to tour your club set, but then also work on the BPD show, right?
Yeah, because how can I put it? So this year, I'm going to start to do like Brighton Fringe and Edinburgh Fringe and other festival things. But because it'll be the first time that I'm doing these festivals, and it'll be my first hour-long show, the best way for me to have more impact is to do my tried and tested material, which is my club set, make that my first show, because if I hope to get good reviews for that show, then that's gonna be a huge help when I go back to Edinburgh in 2025 with two shows. One of them will be my club set again, and then the next one will be the BPD one, which I'm calling a nightmare brain share, because it feels like there's 4 flatmates in my brain, and they're horrible.
That's a good name.
But you gotta live with them.
That's a very
good. So nightmare brain share I'm going to do in 2025, and because I'll have had good reviews from the first show, it will help promote. It will help get more people to see that show. And then once I have that show, the nightmare brain share one is about educating people, well, entertaining them, but also educating them as to what borderline personality disorder is, what emotion dysregulation looks like, and all that stuff. So that then when I do the show about emotion regulation skills, it's like a companion show, that one, right? Because then that's like the next one further on. So if, for example, I want to do the emotion regulation one, in schools or something like that, I'll have video footage of the first show, the one about BPD. It gives people a context, and it goes in a logical order, so that with my club set show, which the working title for that one is Singing, Sagging, and Shagging. So yeah, that's what I want. With the first show, they'll see, oh, okay, she's a decent musical comedian. She's fun. She's worth listening to. then with the second one, yeah, oh, this is what's, because the second show, the one about BPD, that's my heart show. That's the one that, means the most to me. That's part of my mission and all that stuff. But before I do that, yeah, I have to prove to people that I'm worth it.
And there are two things I was going to say, which I find brilliant. Is that one, you said earlier that you can't remember other people's jokes, but yet you've got three shows that you're working on.
Yeah.
And then the second, which it's really wonderful. The second thing was that I agree. It's like with also I think sorry. Let me say it right. So the second thing, which I also find incredible, is that because I've seen some bits of I've seen some of your parts of your show, and I really enjoyed it. And a part of me was thinking, some of the stuff can't go in the school, I think.
Yeah, most of it. But none of Love That can go to school.
The fact that you can tell that it's even. I guess it's like you said, it's like your. Did you say baby, or was it the BPD one? You used the word the BPD.
Which one?
Used the word which was.
The BPD is a nightmare brain share.
You call it something else, as in oh, this is my
heart
show.
My heart show. That's my.
I mean, I could tell, or it's so nice to see as well, because it sounds already very, again, same but different. It's
it's completely different. It's none of it is in my. It's completely different to my club set. Yeah, well, yeah, because it's I do a whole song about PTSD, a whole song about psychosis, a whole song about bipolar, a whole song.
And you
about,
see, it goes from your club set to that, and you can see that. And I think actually, it goes to it's full circle now to when we started, and we're like, things change, and we love to work on different things, and you love to jump around. That's amazing.
Well, it's just it's fun, and it's the way that because I gig quite a lot, and some people are like, oh, you gig so much, but to me, comedy is literally like food. Literally like food, like comedy gave
you've got to
for
do
me. It totally gave my life meaning and stuff.
I think it's so. I think my first. One of the reasons why I started doing comedy, and the reason why I usually tell people, is that I feel like if I can make people laugh at my misery, it makes the misery a bit more worth it. I feel like something shit's happened, but at least someone's laughing about it, or at least I'm making someone laugh, and not in a genuine way, rather than not genuine, in a positive way, rather than someone laughing at me. People laugh with me at my own cost, I guess, but that's fine, because I'm provoking that laughter, and I could. So that's the part which I love the most about doing comedy. But it was amazing chatting with you. It was amazing catching up. Good luck.
Thank you.
No,
Thanks for having me.
Thank you all for listening, and hope to have you back next week. We've got some really cool people joining us this year, so stay tuned, stay skillful. Goodbye.